The year is 480 BC, and somewhere in the hills of southern Greece, 300 men are marching toward a battle they know they will not survive. But they are not falling in defeat. They are falling exactly as they were trained, as warriors of the most feared city-state the ancient world had ever produced. A city with no walls because it didn't need them. A city that turned its children into soldiers and its soldiers into legends. This is Sparta. Not the Sparta of Hollywood, not the slow-motion myth, the real Sparta at the height of its power, a city unlike anything that existed before it or since. Today we walk its streets, understand its people, and find out what made this small city on the banks of the Helots the most powerful military force in the known world. I'm Dr. Charlie, and this is History Lab. To understand Sparta at its peak, we need to understand how it got there. Sparta sits in the Laconia region of southern Greece, a long, fertile valley carved by the Helots River and ringed by mountains. The Taygetos Range to the west reaches over 2,400 meters. The Parnon Range guards the east. Nature itself built Sparta's first walls. The Dorian Greeks who settled here around 900 BC were already a warrior culture, but it was a single crisis that forged them into something extraordinary. In the 8th century BC, Sparta conquered the neighboring region of Messenia, enslaving its entire population. These enslaved people were called Helots, and they outnumbered their Spartan masters by as many as 7 to 1. This is the moment that changed everything. A ruling class of 30,000 Spartans now had to permanently control a workforce of over 200,000 people, people who had every reason to revolt. And so, Sparta made a decision no other Greek city had ever made. It turned itself into a machine. The architect of this machine was a man named Lycurgus. His name is attached to the Great Retra, a sweeping set of laws that restructured Spartan society from the ground up. No private wealth, no luxury, no walls. Every male citizen existed for one purpose alone: to be a soldier. By the 6th century BC, this system had produced the most formidable land army in the Mediterranean world. Sparta was at its peak. Now, let us see what that actually looked like.
The first thing that strikes every visitor to Sparta, the thing that shocked the ancient world, is what isn't here. No grand walls, no towering temples, no marketplace packed with merchants from a dozen nations. The Athenian historian Thucydides wrote that if Sparta were ever abandoned, future generations would find it hard to believe it had ever been powerful at all. He was right, and that was entirely intentional. Sparta wasn't one city, it was 5 villages spread across the valley floor: Limnae, Kynosura, Messoa, Pitana, and Amyklai to the south. Timber and mud brick construction, unpaved streets, a city that spent its resources on soldiers, not architecture. No city wall, because Spartan ideology considered walls a symbol of weakness. The wall of Sparta, its generals would say, was made of men, not stone. There was one exception. On the low Acropolis stood the temple of Athena Chalkioikos, Athena of the Bronze House. Walls lined with intricately worked bronze plates. Even Sparta had its monument to divine power. It was also a sanctuary, sacred ground, inviolable, or supposed to be. It was here that the general Pausanias was deliberately walled in to starve to death by his own people. Even gods had limits in Sparta. At the heart of civic life was the Agora, not a commercial hub. Merchants were not welcome. This was the space for the Apella, the citizen assembly, where Spartan men voted on war and peace by shouting. Loudest chorus wins. At its center stood a circular building called the Skios, unique in all Greek architecture.
another reminder that Sparta did things its own way. Around the Agora stood the tombs of Spartan heroes, buried within the city, which was provided nearly everywhere else in Greece. In Sparta, the dead and the living shared the same space. The ancestors were always watching. Sparta's population was divided into 3 groups, and the city's entire architecture of power rested on keeping them in their place. At the top, the Spartiates, full citizens, perhaps 8,000 men at Sparta's height, professional soldiers who owed the city their entire lives from age 7 to 60. Below them, the perioikoi, free but not citizens, running the workshops, trading with the outside world, serving in the army, essential and almost entirely forgotten by history. And then there were the Helots. At age 7, every Spartan boy was taken from his family, not as punishment, as a beginning. The system was called the Agoge. For 13 years, these boys were stripped of comfort, subjected to deliberate hunger, forced to compete and fight and endure. One cloak, winter and summer, reeds cut from the Eurotas for a bed. The goal wasn't cruelty for its own sake. It was the production of a specific kind of human being, one who felt no pain, feared no enemy, and obeyed without question. At 20, soldier. At 30, permitted to live with his wife. At 60, retirement. An entire life structured entirely around the army. And here is what shocked the ancient Greeks more than any battle. Spartan women were free. Not free in the modern sense, but free in a way that Athenian women, confined to the inner rooms of their homes, could scarcely imagine. Spartan girls ran, wrestled, threw the discus. They were educated. They owned property. They ran the family estates while their husbands were at war. Gorgo, wife of Leonidas, was asked why Spartan women were the only ones who could rule men. Her reply, "Because we are the only ones who give birth to men." In Sparta, the ideology of war shaped everything, including the freedom of women. The Spartan soldier was the product of 20 years of preparation. He fought in the phalanx, a wall of shields and spears, 8 rows deep. The key was not individual strength, it was collective discipline. Every man's shield protected the man to his left. To break formation was personal disgrace that would follow a Spartan and his family for generations. Crimson cloak, deliberate. Red doesn't show blood. A wounded Spartan could fight on without his enemies knowing. Primary weapon, the spear. Primary weapon system, each other. In 480 BC, Leonidas led 300 Spartans to the pass at Thermopylae to hold back the Persian invasion of Xerxes. They held for 3 days. When they were betrayed and surrounded, Leonidas dismissed the allied troops and stayed. They fought to the last man. This was not a military victory, it was a cultural statement. A Spartan mother handed her son his shield as he marched to war with the 2-word instruction, "With it or on it." Return victorious or be carried home dead. No third option. But there was another side to the Spartan war machine, one they rarely spoke of openly. Each year, the ephors formally declared war on the Helots, a legal mechanism that allowed the Krypteia, young Spartan warriors sent out at night to kill Helots, targeting the strongest, the most intelligent, the most capable of leading a revolt. Systematic terror. The entire Spartan military culture, for all its honor and discipline, rested on a foundation of violence directed inward as much as outward. A society of extraordinary self-discipline and extraordinary brutality, often at the same time. Sparta's peak would not last forever. The earthquake of 464 BC killed thousands of Spartiates and triggered a massive Helot revolt. The constant wars of the 5th and 4th centuries ground down the citizen population. By 371 BC, the first decisive land defeat at Leuctra and the myth of Spartan invincibility shattered with it. The city that had no walls was eventually overshadowed. 10,000 Spartiates at its height, a few hundred by the Hellenistic period. What Sparta built was extraordinary and fragile in ways it refused to see. But what Sparta left behind was something different from gold or architecture or philosophy. It left behind an idea that discipline creates freedom, that the body can be pushed further than the mind believes, that a community bound by shared sacrifice becomes something greater than the sum of its parts. Whether you admire Sparta or are troubled by it, and you should be both, it remains one of the most remarkable experiments in human civilization ever attempted. A city with no walls, an army with no equal, a story that 2,500 years later still has not finished being told.
Sparta didn't fall because it was weak. It fell because it built a perfect machine and forgot to build anything else. No art, no philosophy, no people left to defend them. But the idea it left behind, that one survived everything. Hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which civilization we're bringing back to life next. I'm Dr. Charlie, and we'll see you in the next era.